long intro. Did you make that nonsense?
I'll tell you what. I think I have a good cartoon look.
You do actually. Pretty smooth.
I feel like I could pull off being a cartoon.
Speaking of good cartoon look, did you see the flag? What do you call that? The trailer? I don't know. The picture I put on the page with Javier's sweet mug on there.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where that picture was from, but I know where it's from without even checking.
You do? Who's behind you in the shot?
I think it's my Star Wars names were rusty, but it's from Episode 3. One of the it's a Star Wars display they had up in Washington D.C.
That's true. It was Darth Vader. Right? Was standing right behind.
Was it Darth Vader?
Okay. I cut Darth Vader right out, and you didn't have a beard. And I remember you had some facial hair, so I tried to draw a little in, and I'm like, I don't know. He'll come on smooth cut if I do.
It was surprising, but it's good, man. I love it.
I used to try to do that when I showed some initiative, and then the last couple of weeks and during COVID, I was like, I don't feel like drawing these people out over the pictures. We just put their name on it.
Put their name on there. So you got a picture.
It makes me look good because that picture's like 9 years old. So I got no complaints, you know.
You're very smooth and baby face. Now you look all heel, like Sir Mo.
Yeah,
when he grew the goatee out to be heel. Sir Mo. All right, Eddie. Let's say who this is. Why don't you give?
Let's welcome Javier Ojst back to the show from ProWrestlingStories.com. I also heard that you do a pop. Is it a pop culture site that you're on as well that you write for?
Yeah, I've written for a page called Pop Culture Retrorama. During COVID, there was plenty of time to just explore different things. And when I wasn't writing about wrestling, I decided to write about my other love, which is a lot of pop culture topics. I went into Atari when I worked with Hasbro, Toys R Us, and just a lot of toy related geeky stuff. So I write there for that page also.
Are you friends with Pete Bregman? I forget the guy he was telling me about. No, he knew someone that worked for Hasbro and also wrote stuff online, but never mind.
I worked as a merchandiser, a retail merchandiser. So I never went to the actual Hasbro headquarters. I was going from store to store, stocking and trying to just make sure we had as much space as possible. So we were on the road, and it was fun. It was fun. Yeah. Got to work with toys and stuff.
A friend of mine just got fired from Hasbro. You might know Mr. Potato Head.
Oh,
I don't know that he got fired, but
no, he's still there. But they're claiming that he's something that he's not.
They gave him a new gimmick.
Yeah. He's part of a family now. He's not the headliner. He's a B card now.
Well, I'll tell you, Javier, I listened to your interview with Evan Ginsberg. And I heard you talking about the Dukes of Hazzard, man. I feel like you and I could hang out for years just talking about the 80s.
Love the Dukes of Hazzard. That was my show when I was a kid. My parents had to get me a TV just for me, and they put it in my room because they wanted to watch Dallas, and I wanted to watch the Dukes of Hazzard, and they try to convince me, listen, no, you got a nice little TV up in your room now. You can watch your show, and we won't have to be fighting over the big TV down here. So I go up and I look at the little TV they had up there. I turn it on, and it was like gray and black and white, green colors. And as a 6-year-old kid, that's not cool at all.
Yeah.
But what was good about it is that on that little black and white TV, I started messing around with the UHF dial, and that's where I discovered championship wrestling from Florida, Georgia, I think a little bit of Tennessee, but mostly from Florida. Kevin Sullivan and the Army of Darkness, and I was hooked.
Did you also figure out if you went up way in the high numbers, you could watch like HBO and Skinamax Scrambled and kind of see boobs going like that?
As a kid, there like hundreds of channels on UHF, but maybe only 4 or 5 worked because it was didn't find those channels out. Didn't find those.
Where'd you grow up?
I'm from El Salvador, but when this happened, this was in Florida.
Okay. Nice.
Now, where are you living? Where are you right now?
I'm in El Salvador.
Oh, you are. Okay. Oh, that's cool. What's the time difference? Is there a time difference?
I'm 2 hours behind. I'm mountain right now.
Okay.
But it goes from mountain to central. But right now we're mountain.
Wow, that's pretty cool, man. Good for you.
All right.
We don't get snow. It's either super hot and humid or nice weather. It's either cold or rainy. We got 2 seasons, hot and rainy. No snow or any we get earthquakes from time to time.
Okay. So do you have the network? Do you subscribe to the WWE network?
I can get it. I have not had it. I have not had it for a while because I feel like it would eat up so much of my time. I would just start binge watching all the old stuff. I know myself.
I think what Eddie knows is, do you have to peacock like America does?
No, there's no peacock here. But so if I stick with the network, I'll be able to see, I guess, more. Anyway, if you're not living in the United States, you can only get the network. There's no peacock. That's what it is.
Right. Okay.
Right. Oh,
now if the content is going to be different than peacock, I wouldn't think so. Yes. That would be I think it's going to probably mirror each other, I would think.
Yeah, so before we go too far into the wrestling topic, I still want to stick with something because we're going to jump off. So we're going to stay on the retro side for a second. I recently discovered something called the Libby app, and I don't know if it exists in El Salvador, but for people in America that have a library card, you can listen to audiobooks on this Libby app. And I've been listening to Real Player One or Ready Player One. You know what I'm talking about? They made a movie of that. But
I definitely know what you're talking about. Yeah,
the book, man, is incredible, and I'm listening to it, so I'm not reading it. But I mean, the book is way better than the movie. It's read by Will Wheaton, and there's so much 80s and 90s trivia, and it's just packed with it. The idea is that some guy died, and he left like an Easter egg in a virtual world. And people have to find it. If they find it, they'll win billions of dollars and they'll win his empire. And in order to do that, they have to dig through all this 80s and 90s trivia. So they're like jumping in and out of old vintage video games and D&D and old television shows and like movies like Breakfast Club and all kinds of crazy stuff to find it.
Yeah, they have there's like a lot of references, right?
Yeah, I highly recommend that if you're into like old school, geek out kind of, pop culture stuff like that.
Yeah.
Check that out. And if you want to listen to it in the car, get that Libby app and you can listen to any book for free if you get a library card. It's pretty cool this way. I don't know if they have it out there, but it's cool.
Yeah, I've been told. I have not seen it. I got a bunch of books I want to read and movies I want to watch. I guess that's how we all are now with so much content. But I've been told if you're interested, read the book first.
Oh yeah.
And then watch the movie. And then the person that told me that actually maybe you should watch the movie and then the book because he said that the book is much better.
Yeah.
So maybe watching the movie will want you to go more into that world, so the book will be better afterwards.
Yeah.
So,
I'm definitely gonna check
it out. Yeah.
You were planning on checking it out then. They just released Ready Player 2, so there's a sequel to it now. So I'm excited to hear that. I've got it on borrow. It's coming soon to my app. So, but anyhow, there's
funny story on like media, for example. I'm a big fan of the Blade Runner from 1982.
Oh, nice.
It's maybe like one of my favorite movies of all time. Just it's got to be up there.
Yeah.
I got a Blu-ray player a couple years ago just to be able to watch the sequel, and my sequel is still up there on my shelf, sealed, and I have not watched it. but now it's on Netflix. It's on my list, and I have not watched it. But it just is. But it's one of those pending movies that I gotta dive into.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we jump in? So I was reading a couple of the stories that you had written for Pro Wrestling Stories, and how many have you written now?
Written, I think it's around the 85 mark. Published,
okay.
It's around 81 because once they're submitted, it's up to the editor and the owner to eventually get them out there. Sometimes it's about timing, but written, it's around 85 right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long have you been writing for them?
A year and a half.
Cool. Oh, that's cool, man. Was the pandemic was the Kickstarter for you?
Well, the pandemic definitely helped me bulk up the count on the stories. I just kept on going, gave myself goals, and when I would finish writing one, I would think to myself, well, I think that's enough. We'll just kind of hang it up for now, and then I would just do another one a couple of days later, and I just keep on writing until as long as I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
I'm glad that it was a good catalyst for you to get your writing kicked off, because I went the opposite way. The years before, man, I cranked out 2 or 3 books in 1 year, and then COVID hit, and I don't know if I was bummed or I don't know what to tell you, but I got like a writer's block. And when you would think that, oh, you got all this free time sitting here and I could work on this left and right, I didn't do anything. Like I kind of just did nothing, and I went the opposite direction, which sucked. We did some like streaming stuff, and we did like COVID Con, some things like that. But when it actually comes to research,
I love COVID Con.
You watched it? Cool.
Oh yeah, I love that the COVID Con and the one afterwards with the Cauliflower Alley.
Okay, yeah.
COVID Con, that was like it was like a buffet of that writers. You had wrestlers, and I love that.
Thanks,
you
guys
did a great job.
Cool. And guys like Eddie, man, he was on all day. Like he just kept
Eddie and Rob.
Yeah.
And Rob, yeah.
So we appreciate that you enjoyed it.
It was funny, not funny. I don't want to make it sound like some of our heroes, some of the wrestlers were having trouble with connections and working the tablet.
Yep.
Some of them were appearing with like merchandise and they want to sell their stuff if they're not working, right? But it was a learning experience for everyone. But it was amazing.
To our defense, it was probably the first. We couldn't find any evidence of any sort of online Comic-Con convention or wrestling themed anything. So we started when we were promoting it. We were saying we were the first ones, we think, and I think we were.
Think so too, yeah. So, then there was like a trend just started, and you get these virtual signings.
Yep. They went everywhere.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, we wanted to do one, but Eddie and I and Rob, we couldn't figure out exactly how we're going to do that. And eventually, other people figured it out, and they did a better job than we would have. So,
well, we had the idea that we were going to do it with Kamala, right? Weren't we? We were going to go down there.
We wanted to, yeah. But he had issues. He came on. He was on COVID Con for all of maybe 5 seconds, right? He talked to, who was he on with? Maybe Bill Watts. Was Bill Watts on a second?
No, he was on with the guy from Memphis Wrestling.
Gil Culkin. Gil Culkin. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Is Gil Culkin's not the one with Mississippi?
Yeah, he's Mississippi.
Mississippi.
He said Memphis. He meant Memphis. I think he meant Mississippi. Who knows? Eddie only watched WWE, so
right.
But back to what you were saying, Kenny. Writing's tough. I mean,
you got to be in the mood, right?
Writing. It's weird. I think people work in different ways when they try to get something done, whether it's writing or anything else. Sometimes I'm in front of my screen and things just aren't clicking. I'm not really a morning person, so in the morning it's tougher for me to write. But in the afternoons and at night, I feel like I'm a little sharper. But I don't always have time to write when I would like to write. That's the thing.
You know what I think it might have been, and I haven't even really put my finger on it, why I couldn't. I kept saying, do I have writer's block? Why do I not feel like it? Well, here's what it is. I was locked in my house with my wife, and she doesn't like when I write. So now what I just realized, we were right next to each other pretty much the whole year. Maybe what it was is I just didn't have the opportunity to do it because it takes her off when I get into my world. And you might know, you kind of have to put blinders on. You shut the world off. You have to do your thing. You can't have TV on, while you're researching, or you'll start watching that. And so maybe that's what happened. And maybe my wife is the cause for nothing coming out.
Once you're interrupted and you lose your train of thought, it's like they just turn off the faucet and you just got all crank it up again. Yeah, man. Definitely.
Javier, what do you got? What do you got there behind you? I see some action figures. What do you got there?
I
see Star Wars.
Figures? I got different stuff. I mean, I got some. Right. I would have to pull the laptop, or I got new stuff, old stuff. All these are science fiction books. These are wrestling books up there.
Wow.
And way over there in a bin, I got like really old He-Man figures that are if they're not stored away in the bin, they'll just continue to just deteriorate. I want to make a nice little display with the glass protection for them, but they're like way over there. I got old
That's
wrestling, old wrestling tapes.
My bucket list for this year is a He-Man MOC.
Oh, nice.
That's what I'm trying to get.
All right.
I'll get something right now, Eddie, with I'll get something that Eddie's gonna appreciate. He brought it up at the beginning. So that's it. I got this real cheap. This is a vinyl.
Really?
It's a record?
Yeah, it's a record.
Who does someone sing on it? We got Boss Hogg singing the blues.
Yeah,
is that for sale? I'll buy that. Is that for sale? That's awesome.
Shipping's gonna cost way more than this beat up thing, you know. You got the General Lee sung by Johnny Cash. You got
all right.
Stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's
like
awesome.
it.
Yeah, I love that.
Nice.
I know you.
Next to me, I wanted to show my Sherman Hemsley George Jefferson autograph picture.
Well, I thought I was gonna win. I thought I was gonna win the night with my Dukes of Hazzard vinyl, but I think you won the whole month with that. I think that's what we do. We like showing off our, all the stuff we accumulate over the years.
Absolutely, that's the best part about it.
Things we feel passionate about, other than wrestling. We always there's other things we get into.
Hey, you should be proud of your writing too, though. So let me ask you, how did you get into or submitting? Like, how did you get able to be published by this website?
Well, as a kid, I used to read. Well, I still do, but mostly as a kid and a teenager, I used to read The Wrestler, Inside Wrestling, Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I'm sorry, all the After mag, the family mags, and I always thought to myself, maybe one day I could write for some of those magazines, but it's not that easy, you know. Mm-hmm. But then something happened that made me just feel like I had to say something. I had to do something, and it's when Silver King, the wrestler, died in the match over in England against Juventud Guerrera. They call him Juvie, and that it just really upset me the way it was handled, the situation. I think that was 2019, I believe. The paramedics weren't trained properly, and a lot of things happened that I'm not saying Silver King would have survived, but maybe he would have given a better chance of. And I used to read I was a fan of Pro Wrestling Stories for a couple of years, and I emailed them. I messaged them and said, "This is a story that you guys should cover." Little did I know, Pro Wrestling Stories mostly focuses on older stories and things from the past, not really the current product. Right. So you won't see like Raw or SmackDown reviews or what's going on NXT or AEW. Very rarely they'll have articles covering the new product. So I kind of convinced the owner and CEO. His name is JP Zarka. I convinced him he convinced me to to take a shot at it. Okay. To go for it. So I did. I wrote it, and he liked it. It got published, and I thought, well, that's my bucket list. I wrote my story for a pro wrestling publication, and
cool.
Let's call it a day.
It feels good, right?
And then
I see it on the screen, right?
I was relieved. I felt lost. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to come out right. And according to the feedback, it came out great. And instead of me stopping, I asked myself, if you do one more story on one more guy, who would you like to write about? And one of the wrestlers that really I enjoyed watching work when I was a big fan was Big Van Vader in WCW. And that's Kenny's book, the Vader Leon White. So in order for me I convinced JP to allow me to do one more story, which would be Vader. So I ordered the book, and things happened, and the book took a little bit longer to get shipped. It finally got shipped. But in the meantime, I went on. I wrote 2 more stories. It was about Dawn Fargo, and the assassin Jody Hamilton. So then it just kept on going, and
Did you ever get the book, by the way? I hope it showed.
Oh yeah, I got it. Yeah, it's up here. Yeah,
I'm good.
I found the ear and everything.
That's right. I remember now. Yeah.
At least I think I see something that looks like an ear, but I might not have found it yet.
You probably find it. I did talk to him a couple of times. What did you say the guy's name again? Who runs Pro Wrestling Stories?
JP Zarka.
That's right, JP. He we talked last year a couple of times via email. I was going to take some excerpts from books and let him turn them into stories and put them up. And he told me to go ahead and pick some stuff out. And I think the first one we were going to do was the parasailing accent with Brutus Beefcake. I haven't actually selected it, like how much of it yet to put out there, but I think we're going to do it still. So I just got to get back to him.
It's very cool. You get, the page gets a lot of views, and and it'll be awesome to have your work on the page as well, man.
Cool. I'll throw it up there.
And it's funny, like people like you, Scott Teal, and everyone who writes wrestling books, you guys, and the people with Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the magazines back in the day, you guys are like my inspiration to continue writing, and maybe one day be involved in a book project, and you can have a bunch of articles is amazing. I love every single one of them, and all put together that's a couple of books right there. But when you work on a book project, one wrestler, that's almost like set in stone, So we're going to continue moving forward and trying to.
So I'm going to read Eddie's mind right now. He's going to say, if you could write a book on one wrestler, what wrestler would it be?
Is that what you're going to ask, Eddie?
That's what Eddie was going to ask.
Maybe. Well, I was asked a similar question on another podcast, actually Evan Ginsberg show, and they asked me if I could interview one wrestler, past or present, who would it be? And I told them Wendy Richter. Oh. Because to me, Wendy Richter was, for a couple of years, for a rather brief moment in wrestling history, the Hulk Hogan, but the women's version of Hulk Hogan. She was one of the most popular wrestlers, male or female, of that era. And people still remember her, even though her career was basically cut short after that whole deal with Moolah and all those supposed things that happened, But she
you know what's funny about that is last night I was watching Primetime Wrestling, like some random episode on YouTube, and it was Princess Victoria.
That's the best way to go. Just pick a random episode and see what happens, man.
And it was I didn't realize this. It was Princess Victoria and Velvet McIntyre against what I guess was a jobber, Wendy Richter, because she was introduced as cowgirl Wendy Richter.
Oh, she was she was more like a heel Wendy when she's in her cowboy outfit. Yeah. Was she with
I forgot who she was with.
What's the other half of the
it was
the name will come to me.
Yeah, it was I can't think of her name.
Her partner is also one of my is a favorite women's wrestler of mine, but I'm shooting blanks here. I'll remember.
Eddie shoots blanks a lot, but
remember the Jumping Bomb Angels?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What was the tag team they went against? The
Glamour Girls.
Yeah, the Glamour Girls.
So Leilani Kai, and the other one.
Yeah, the other one is I believe is the one who was with Wendy. I'm not going to allow this to happen because.
So while you look that up and cheat,
Judy Martin.
There it is.
No, it was Peggy Lee is who it was.
Oh, okay, Peggy Lee.
And I had the word Peggy Sue in my mind. I'm like, it was not Sherry Martel. There's no way, but I kept thinking Peggy, so I was sort of on the right track.
Peggy Lee became Peggy Lee Leather as a heel.
Okay.
And but as Peggy Lee face, she was a little bit. She hadn't found her character yet, but as Peggy Lee Leather, heel from like Georgia, and she would wear the spikes, and she had some wars with Wendy and other girls, man.
So Javier, if I could make that happen, would you do it? Would you write the book? I'm talking you interview her and you get together 250 to 300 pages to 400. If you want to do a big ass one, a 400 pager, would you do it?
Do you think
I could set it up? Look at right on the air, put them on the spot.
I don't think Wendy is really she's kind of disappears from wrestling.
Okay, so a buddy of mine, promoter named Scott Wilder, who threw $2,000 into the Kamala Kickstarter when I first put the book out back in the day. I was still figuring out how to publish and the whole deal. He now eventually I introduced him, just the backstory. I introduced him to Danny Davis as to start out. He started bringing him around to Comic-Cons as one of these agent type guys. And then Scott Wilder started booking all kinds of people. Well, he booked Wendy Richter. And about a year ago, he said to me, he's like, I think Wendy wants to do a book. And man, I was right in the middle of, a couple of things were all coming my way at the same time. Ken Patera, which is still kind of being put together. Just Incredible and Bruce Pritchard were all at the same time. And I'm like, well, tell her that I think I could make it happen, but I might have to find another writer. And it just so happens you sounded interested. So I'll drop him a line and see, what I do, by the way, I'm an English teacher. So I constantly push people to try to like put projects out and make stuff happen and like try to help them. And I pay it forward. Like I'm not looking for any money. I would just help you learn how if a wrestler reached out to me and speaking with them and they're serious, because it's a commitment on their part and my part. Yeah. If we want this to come out right, if we want to make a good book out of this, we need both to just understand it's going to take time and time commitment. And eventually someone's going to have to edit that work. No one's perfect. This is going to be like a team effort with other people involved. But I recently did see Wendy in a virtual signing. Okay. I'm not sure if it was with Scott Wilder, because there's a couple of people who do that. I think it was, I'm not going to plug other pages on your page, but but the talent has to also be willing to understand that they got to start thinking way back. And if they can't remember, just like with Hornswoggle, he needed help remembering his career. You got to get other people involved. Right. So what I do as a ghostwriter, just as the ghostwriter process, since most of what you do is straight research based, it's not that far off from that. So what I'll do is I'll listen to a shoot interview, and then I'll listen to another shoot interview, and then I'll read something online. Then I interview my wrestlers with the questions that were never asked. So that way I can fill in the blanks. And then when I start really hitting them with stuff that people have never asked them before, like, what high school did you go to? Who was your first girlfriend? Did you get any fights? Did you play any sports? Did you, I'm asking all this stuff that no one ever asks. Usually they ask, was there ever a fight in the locker room? What kind of ribs did they play? What's a road story? Those are the same stories that are asked over and over. You can find that stuff. And if you spend a lot of hours talking to them, you can start to understand how they talk, and then you try to write it in their voice. So I'll listen to the RF videos, and I'll go on YouTube and like listen to other videos and look up stuff like Pro Wrestling Stories. Like I remember looking up I think it was some of the details of the Jacques Rougeau nailing Dynamite Kid. I remember looking that up because Beefcake was there. Yeah, he hit him with a roll up of I think quarters, I think is what it was, right? Yeah. So I remember looking that up because Beefcake was in the cafeteria where I think Dynamite was eating, and then he went out and then he got slugged, so Beefcake was like on the other side of the wall when that happened, didn't know it was going down. So it was cool to be able to like see all that. And then I drop in stuff that maybe Beefcake doesn't know. Right. But I put it in his words, but then I tell him afterwards. And if he says, yeah, I think that'd be right, then everything is fine. Right. But if he's like, no, that's not how it happened, then that's no good. So as a ghostwriter, you have to kind of like plug in real stuff and like sort of, I don't want to say be inventive, but fill in the blanks with the best possible scenarios that it could have been. And just as a, anecdote to that, Mick Foley, the reason why he wrote his book is because they had a ghostwriter that tried to fill in with ridiculous stuff that was so far wrong that he said, screw it, I'll write it myself. So you want that. That's the the far, worst case scenario that you wouldn't want to happen. So, but anyhow, if you're into doing a ghostwriting book, I'll help you out with it if you want, because you've been on the show a couple times now, so that'd be fun.
Cool, I appreciate it, Kenny. You feel like you've Kamala was your first book, right? Kamala. Yeah. You feel like you've as you've written more books, you feel like you've improved in different.
Yeah, and the first book was pushed out, so it was pushed out before it was even as well edited as I would like, and we paid an editor $1,000 for it. Like, it was a lot, and I don't know, maybe I got worked a little bit. I'm not really sure, but we had a guy go through the whole thing, and Kamala was like, I almost said on his last legs, and that would come off to be a pun. So a real bad pun, because he had lost his legs to diabetes. Be careful which words
creative, but not appropriate for the
situation. No. So he was on his deathbed. I mean, he had some kind of, it was called periodontitis. I think it was an infection, stomach lining infection, and he almost died. And the editor's like, it's pretty close, so I think we should be good to go if you want to put it out. And then he can see it, So we put it out, and man, there was a handful of errors here and there that I really, as an English teacher, I was like, oh, geez, we didn't catch really simple stuff like that. So then when we got the second print up and the ebook and all, and we fixed it all and everything was fine, but we pushed it out. It made it out to the Kickstarter, because Kickstarter has a time limit and the whole deal. And he was able to hold it. And I'll tell you, just like the author, when you hold a book in it, you're like, geez, all of my time, it's finally here and it's in my hands. And, his wife said that it perked him up, and she almost attributed the book to bringing him out of a funk that made him feel better, and thought that the book maybe improved his demeanor, which somehow correlated to his health. He came out of the hospital soon after the book was out, and he felt a lot better, and he had it and was super happy and proud about it. So the editor was correct in saying it was good to push it out, but there's some little errors here and there in the first printing that pissed me off as a writer now. And I don't have as many now, although as I guess as an indie author, you get some here and there.
and it's brutal, because fans are fans. I mean, they're very passionate. On one side and the other. If they love their stuff, they're going to promote it themselves. They'll push it themselves. But if they don't like your stuff, or they see like these little errors,
they're brutal.
If they wouldn't have gone on Amazon for a review, now they're going on Amazon for a review because you messed up on 2 sentences on page 63.
You put a comma here instead of there,
Or you mentioned this name, you mentioned Leilani Kai, but it was really Judy Martin.
Right.
So how dare you call yourself a wrestling writer? Where's the editor here?
Some of them are brutal. I remember sitting talking to guys saying, listen, the book for Kamala, all the money is going to Kamala. I know there's a couple errors you found in there. We fixed them since, but by you slamming a big review, then he might not sell a book. Then, then you're hurting this guy that has no income now. That's why we put it out. And then they sort of got it. This one guy, I remember just talking to a guy, why are you slamming him like that? I'm like,
that's a good.
I have a Twitter handle, Kenny Casanova Errors, where I just go on Twitter and blast them all out.
Don't give him any ideas.
Kenny's such a hack. Those books he writes is like
it's so funny, but they all say it. Ian Douglas said it recently. He said, I found a couple of errors in my book, and like I push it out to her. Like everybody says it. Cosper says you're never going to get clean, 100% clean, and this and that. So much to the point now that down, if you read, I don't know if I did it in Vaders, it might be in there, but down in my fine print, right in the bottom of the book, I write, hey, it's a couple of wrestlers putting a book together. You're lucky you got this many, correct. Okay. It spells word spelled correctly. But
because I did find a couple of tiny things in the book, and this is not like on you or
no, I hear you. I know they're in there.
but it's such a great book that I did a double take, and okay, and I'm thinking, man, for the author to have even little things like that, it must kill him because it's already out.
Yeah, but, it does. And there's a couple in Kamala,
and you can the editor goes through it, finds nothing, goes through it again, finds nothing, and it's printed, and something happened, and it's there.
Yeah, well, the author gets grilled for it.
I just took a
or there's stories that they're telling you later on, and like, man, that should have been in the book. Why are you telling me? Why are you telling me that now? That should have been in the book.
Totally. Yep.
Well, I just took a class on conditioned behavior, which like the reason like when you're writing and you don't see the errors immediately is because in your brain your brain's reading it correctly. Mm-hmm. But then, if you're like an outside person, you'd be able to pick it up because you're not the one that actually wrote it. It's kind of interesting because they do these exercises where they like count how many thes are in this sentence, and you miss it like 3 times in a row. I'm like, because my brain doesn't want to recognize the word because it doesn't make sense in the sentence. Right. And it's really weird how that happens.
Right. Yeah. That's why they say, in English class, I'm an English teacher. They say to have somebody else read it. Right. And that extra set of eyes sometimes will grab it. And also the idea is you have a short-term memory that actually you download all of your thoughts to the way that the words are supposed to be written. So when you read it, you're actually not reading every individual letter and every individual word. You read a little part of a word and a little part of a letter, in a sentence. And then you get the end of the sentence. You see the next letter because your eyes don't read every individual character. They go boom, like that. So to wait, if you wait a year after you've written a book and you're looking at it fresh, when your short-term memory has purged all of what it thinks it should say, that's when you're able to better edit something. And nobody wants to wait to do that. So that's why I published a real big publishing company that has, a couple of professional editors on staff. And a handful of people working, they're going to have a better polished piece. Like recently ECW put out that Andre the Giant book, and that thing is like great. It's got all kinds of good stuff. And on top of that, it's very polished. Everything's clean and correct, double checked, fact checkers and the whole thing. But man, when I write a book, it's just me and the other dude. And we're just kind of laughing and throwing a bunch of shit together. And
you and the other dude, like, hey man, you think people are gonna love this? Yeah, man, put it in there.
Yeah. That happened with Sabu. Like we did Sabu's book, and at the end, I'm like, dude, you just got a bunch of heat on Twitter for writing stupid shit up there. He's like, yeah, man, I know. And I'm like, what we should do is we should put an FU shout out, Twitter style, from Sabu, and you can slam everybody. And we'll do it tongue in cheek though. We'll just kind of make it like a rib. He's like, all right, that's a good idea. And I'm like, okay, so who should we slam? He's like, fuck Jim Ross. I'm like, all right. So we writing this stuff, right? And it's a riot. And Jim Cornette just did a big piece on it where he read like the FU shout outs from Sabu on his podcast. And all of a sudden Sabu sold a bunch of books, but Sabu like started shitting his pants. I mean, here's the guy that's had like, barbed wire matches, with Terry Funk, and he's like tied up in barbed wire, and they have to clip him out, and he's bleeding all over the place, and his arm looks like a filleted like catfish. And he's worried that that people won't get that he was just kind of like goofing there, So I had to I texted Jim Ross. I'm like, dude, I wanted you to know thing Cornette just brought up, it was totally a rip. and he's like, oh, good to know, thank you. And they're cool about it when you do that, but I just thought it was funny. With
him, was it? I think I heard you mention and don't put yourself down with your books, man. You do great stuff, but people got to realize there's a big difference with the author and maybe a couple other people helping out than with a whole crew, a whole team just on that. And but what I was gonna say is what I was saying about is it. I think you mentioned that it was Sabu where you kind of proposed to pitch the book, and he said, "What you want to write a put me over book? Yeah, go ahead, or let's do it, or something like that." Right?
yeah. Well, see, another thing there's the fine line between should we go corporate and have real pristine, widely distributed book that I only make a 25-cent royalty off of each book, or do I want to print, I don't know, maybe 40% what the big guys print and send it out myself, but make $25 that I split with Sabu on each book, or something like that. We split it in half. So then the FU goes out to the fans that might have the comma in the wrong place. You know what I mean? And then he keeps a bigger piece of the pie. And that's been a big part of my message is like, get the book out there, work on the project. Looks like Eddie had to step out for a second. Get the book out there, get the project done. It's almost like have you heard this before? Pete Bregman, he does my coloring books for me. He draws it. He said that
Okay.
I think also, you know who else might have said this? Let me think. I want to make sure. I think it was Pete Bregman. Said there's a point where you could keep trying to make everything perfect in a comic book, but if you don't meet the deadline, then the thing never comes out. Nobody ever sees it. So Marvel's idea for a long time was get the thing done, meet the deadline. If you don't have a picture perfect or whatever, who cares? You know, we'll still put it out, and people will still get the story, and they'll be happy that they got the book rather than waiting an extra month. That's and not meeting a deadline.
Like writing for newspapers, that's a totally different kind of writing. I don't think I'd be able to do that because they're just pumping it out there. Like what happened, who, where, when, who should I call as a sort, boom, boom. And they have to do 15 of these a day or something, or 10, and just throw it out there. There's no time for, I'm not sure if this word works here, or maybe this sentence, you know, they just gotta, and when there's an error in the newspaper, that's why, because they have to pump this out, you know. It's not, that's a different kind of art form, but it's like a speed test or something, right? Just boom.
So what happened, Eddie? You have to go to potty?
I had to fix the connection.
You can tell us, Eddie. You can tell us.
Nah, I did plug the computer in so that we get the internet for who knows how much longer. But we'll have you. Listen, we want to have you on because I think you got great stories that you've been writing. And I thought it would be cool to have you on periodically to go over some of the, you know, to discuss some of them, because some of them I read and I'm like, that would be interesting to discuss. Like the unionization of wrestling that you just wrote an article about.
Yeah, and we still haven't seen really any changes to that, right? Where it's almost like it's 1985 with Jesse Ventura trying to get the boys to unionize, but nothing's happened.
Well, do you think the product would suffer if they had a union?
You know what? There probably would be less people in the locker room. I bet you we'd have smaller locker rooms because they'd have to give, you know, more medical and pay more money to each one of the guys. So they would push, you know, they get a guy like Kevin Owens and he would be big forever. He wouldn't have like these little spurts where he disappears and stuff like that. You know, or what have you, anybody like that. I think they would focus on one guy and really push a guy instead of this 50-50 booking and having a locker room with 150 people in it. Say that they cut some of that down. Right.
What would happen with like the agents that represent a lot of these guys? Because people forget that the big wrestlers have agents, you know?
Yeah.
Well, they have agents in other sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is AEW doing something?
But wrestling's like a different. It's like a different breed.
Weird,
and wrestling isn't Hollywood, and it isn't the NFL or the NBA. It would have to be some kind of a hybrid,
right?
A union between them.
I'm wondering if AEW has some kind of union type thing. I think they have benefits. They have more stuff in there. They have less dates and more perks, I think, than most contracts I've seen, is what I heard. But I don't.
Well, what I've always wondered is why can't they hire them as like a normal company? Like you go to work for a normal company, they give you benefits, they give you health insurance, and then when you don't work there anymore, then you just don't have it anymore.
But that's what Ventura has been saying for years, how they get away with calling them independent contractors. If I'm an independent contractor, you don't own where I can go. If I want to work for you or work for AEW next weekend, I should be able to do that. How is it that you own basically my life if I'm an independent contractor? So being a little there's got to be people way up in the legal system making sure things stay the way they are. It doesn't make sense.
There actually is a guy, though. Who's the guy you asked? Didn't you ask Eric Bischoff, Eddie, about that one guy? Who was
Andrew Yang?
Yeah, that's it. You asked him about.
I asked B. Brian Blair about him.
That's who it was. He got all riled, but
he wasn't happy about that.
What was that guy's position? Yang?
Oh, but Yang is the guy. He's trying to change things from the status quo.
Right. The contractor. He wants you to be an employer.
I'm saying there's got to be someone. There has to be people, in my opinion, already in place in the legal system that has kept this from not changing for so many years. And money, I would love to believe in any country's legal system, but money can buy many favors anywhere, you know. But it's a shame. Hopefully things will change, you know. And I thought maybe Zelina Vega would kind of spearhead this, but who knows? Who knows what's happening behind the scenes? We don't know. Things take time, right?
Right.
But
well, I wonder what aside from the health insurance, what other aspects would have been prevented? Like, is there anything that would have been prevented by having a union?
Well, the thing is, with a union, the wrestlers will have, in theory, it'll be more equality, like 50-50. Right now, it's more management than the wrestlers. Basically, well, if you don't like the gimmick we're giving you, or if you don't like the scheduling, if you don't like working 5 days a week for this much money, well, go work somewhere else. And a union would establish certain rules and
job security,
ways to, right. And you can file a complaint with them and saying, listen, remember what we signed on? Everyone signed this on a certain date, and they're not complying, and they're not holding their end of the bargain.
And they couldn't have that thing with you've probably heard before. Creative has nothing for you. You know, they say that.
Oh, right, yeah.
They couldn't do that because creative would have to have something that's part of
That's
that
true.
Would be in the contract, or you know that the union would probably negotiate for everybody.
They could a union could fight. They could make things like they help establish more. Let's say you don't work 2 days in a row. You only work, let's say, Monday and Wednesday, not Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Or they'll negotiate a deal where WWE, for example, pays so much of your gas, so much of your hotel.
Right.
All that is negotiable. That's why a union would be important for these guys, where they're getting paid, but they got to pay. Most of them have to pay for their travel, their expenses, their food, you know, their health care. If they get injured in the ring, what I understand, WWE does cover it, but a lot of other things, it's on the wrestler's tab, you know. As independent contractors, the WWE is not obligated to offer certain conditions, but that's where it is right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly interesting. I mean, what happened with Paige, I thought was really odd. I thought that was extremely odd that she wasn't allowed to have a Twitch channel.
Well, I believe she's one of the ones that have still kept it, but WWE basically shut them all the personal ones down, and I believe they're now controlling that source of revenue, of income for the talent as well.
Did she keep her own like, did she switch to her real name, or did she keep the gimmick name on the Twitch? I think that was the concern, was using the fake name.
See, that's the argument also. I mean, do people go and are they there to see people there to see Zelina Vega, not, you know, whatever her real name is? And that's what WWE's argument is.
Right.
But those are the things that could be negotiated with a proper union, proper representation. You know?
So Eddie, a lot of people think of me as just a goofball, but I'm actually the president of our teachers union. And what we are responsible for when we negotiate a teacher's contract is like Javier said, days off, a base salary, a built-in raise for everybody. You know, I would guess also we work on making sure that people have jobs, and if they're cut, why they're cut, and fairness behind cutting. Like, you know how like yearly they'll just randomly say, let's get rid of these 8 guys, and they're still perfectly good, you know, and then they'll bring in 8 new guys, you know. That's to get new blood in. But if there were a union, they would say you have to give a good reason why you're cutting them, or just hire 8 new guys and keep these other guys employed, unless you can show why they're no good. And wrestling ability would have to be one of them. It would have to be that this guy can't do as good a job as the other guy, or something like that, you know. And I don't know how they would.
Well, why couldn't they do what the NFL does? The NFL cuts people all the time.
Do they have a union, NFL?
Yeah, they got the NFL players.
It'd be interesting to look at how that works. I don't know. Maybe it could be. It has to be. There has to be some measuring sticks that would be met. But with wrestling, since it's a work, what kind of measuring sticks can you really have?
I mean, but in the NFL, before they cut someone, they have to state various reasons, because if they don't, the player will just simply say, "Oh, you're cutting me why? Because I'm black? Yeah. Oh, because I got tattoos? Or because you don't?" They can bring up anything and sue. But if the NFL says you violate, remember you'll hear this all the time. So and so violated such and such policy, and because of this, and they throw it out publicly, so that there won't be any litigation. Yeah, they don't just fire. They don't just fire people because someone sucks. That might be the real reason, but there has to be, but that's part of that. That's a game reason. But if they violate some kind of policy, that's public knowledge for everyone.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, Javier, would you be interested in, coming on periodically to talk about some of these stories that you've written? Because you've got quite a number of them that I think would be kind of cool to, kick around.
Yeah,
we're looking to spice some things up here, Javier, a little bit. But
I'd be glad to. But we better talk about Dukes of Hazzard and stuff like that for at least 5 minutes per show.
So
we can't all live on wrestling just 100%.
If I mentioned AEW, you wouldn't get up and go find an AEW belt and then just hold it on your shoulder during the conversation.
Oh yeah, no,
Wait, would you tell us about the 100 million views that you have on over 35 different Facebook pages?
Oh, is this an Avi Klein diss? Yes, it is.
I do have a wrestling Facebook page where I rant and rave, but I try to keep that separate from my work. No, it's called Classic Wrestling Stars. If anyone wants to hang out, that's my personal wrestling page.
All right,
cool.
So where else can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook. If you want to friend me, we will chat. That's no problem. If you want to read my stuff, prowrestlingstories.com. At some point, one of my articles will pop up, or if we're friends on Facebook, I'll just send you a link to my articles.
Cool.
I promise every single article is worth your time. A lot of effort went into them. Blood, sweat, not blood and sweat and tears, but
other bodily fluids.
A lot of love went into them, and they're a good read. I promise they're not going to waste your time.
Cool. And if you want to find Kenny stuff, as always, you can go to Walking on Hot Waffles, WOHW.com.
Cool. All right.
All right, guys.
New projects coming up, Javier? Any new articles you're working on?
Yeah, I just finished a story today, and I submitted it. And the stories that aren't published yet, they should get published soon. One of the ones I'm most proud of is interviewing a lot of the veteran wrestlers here in El Salvador. This will be kind of like a part 2 of an article I already did.
Cool.
Just interview the old timers, get some of their stories, because a lot of these stories are lost. And if you don't put it somewhere in written form, it's just a shame. And it's a pleasure talking with these veteran wrestlers, because when you talk with them, they're just so appreciative that they're remembered. And the best part for me is they always take stacks of old photos, and I always tell them, look, you gotta, but the real photos, because these are older guys, and I always tell them, look, I would really love to help you put these in digital form, because anything can happen to these. It would be this is wrestling history right here, and you might have the only pictures of this event but it's amazing to talk with them, and you get good stuff, good info out of them. But we're always trying to look for good stories, and
I think we should have Javier come back on and just talk about wrestling in El Salvador, because I think that'd be something that I think people would be interested in hearing about. We've had, in the COVID con, we had people talking from Austria and people in Canada and, all around the world. And I don't know much about the El Salvador territory, if I can call it that. So why don't we put a pin in that for next time or something?
Cool. Yeah, I'm still learning about it, but I got a real belt that I'm taken care of, and I'm not going to put it right here, but
that guy was great.
if you guys bring me back, I'll show it off next time. Man.
Cool,
man.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on tonight. We'll see everybody next week.
Thanks,
cool.
man.
Thank you.